As Dr. Naomi Pierce stood in the business class line, gate agent Amanda Harris gave her a look that said it all. Black woman, casual clothes, large tote bag, wrong line. "Ma'am," Amanda said as she approached, "I think you're in the wrong queue. Economy is that way." Naomi calmly held out her boarding pass, seat 1A, business class. Amanda took the ticket, frowned, and said, "This boarding pass looks suspicious. How did you get this?" "I checked in online, through my company account," Naomi replied evenly. But Amanda wasn't convinced. Business class tickets are very expensive. A lot of people fall for upgrade scams. "Let me show you the economy line." Naomi didn't argue. She quietly stepped aside and moved to the back of the line, dignified, but deeply hurt. What Amanda didn't know was that Naomi wasn't just a passenger. She was the head of corporate legal affairs for United Airlines and was boarding that very flight for official business. When the captain entered the cabin and recognized her, Amanda's career ended in a matter of seconds. Before the story begins, drop a comment. Which city are you watching from? And if you stand for justice and equality, share this story and subscribe, because together, our voices are stronger. Chicago O'Hare International Airport's Terminal 1 hummed with the controlled chaos of evening departures. Flight UA 2847 to San Francisco was boarding at gate C14, and the business class queue had formed with the usual collection of suited executives, frequent flyers with status, and travelers who'd paid premium prices for extra legroom and early boarding privileges. Dr. Naomi Pierce stood in that queue, her leather briefcase in one hand and her phone in the other, as she reviewed legal briefs for tomorrow's critical depositions in San Francisco. At 42, Naomi was United Airlines' chief legal counsel, overseeing a department of 87 attorneys handling everything from labor disputes to international regulatory compliance. She'd built her career from Detroit Public Schools to Howard University Law, then Harvard for her LLM, and finally to the top of corporate aviation law. Today had been particularly exhausting, a marathon negotiation session with the FAA regarding new safety compliance requirements, followed by back-to-back video conferences with European regulators about transatlantic route certifications. She dressed for comfort on the return flight, well-fitted jeans, a cashmere sweater, comfortable flats, and her favorite Tumi backpack that served as both professional bag and travel carry-on. She'd flown this route hundreds of times, always in business class as part of her executive compensation package. Seat 1A was her usual preference, window seat, maximum privacy, space to work during the flight. But as she stood in line, she noticed the gate agent's eyes lingering on her with that particular expression Naomi had learned to recognize over 4 decades of being black in predominantly white professional spaces. The look that assessed and found her wanting, that questioned her presence, that automatically assumed she didn't belong. Amanda Harris had been a United Gate agent for 6 years, stationed primarily at O'Hare, where she processed thousands of passengers weekly. She prided herself on her ability to read passengers quickly, identifying those who needed extra assistance, spotting potential problems, maintaining the smooth flow of boarding. But her assessments were filtered through biases she'd never examined, assumptions about who belonged in which spaces based on appearance, dress, and most insidiously, race. As the business class queue moved forward, Amanda's attention fixed on Naomi. The casual clothing despite the business class line. The backpack instead of a rolling carry-on. The lack of obvious wealth markers. And most significantly to Amanda's unconscious prejudice, the black woman's face in a space Amanda had internalized as predominantly white. "Excuse me, ma'am," Amanda called out as Naomi approached the scanner. Her tone carried that particular false sweetness that preceded rejection. "I think you might be in the wrong line. Economy class boards after business." Naomi looked up from her phone, the words taking a moment to register. "I'm sorry. This line is for business class and first-class passengers," Amanda repeated, her voice carrying slightly louder now, drawing attention from other passengers. "Economy boarding begins in about 15 minutes. If you'd like to wait over there." She pointed toward the larger queue forming near the economy boarding sign. I have a business class ticket, Naomi said calmly, reaching into her bag for her boarding pass. Years of professional experience had taught her to remain composed when facing these situations, though each instance still stung. She handed over her phone displaying the digital boarding pass. United Airlines Flight 2847, Seat 1A, Business Class. Amanda took Naomi's phone, examining the boarding pass with obvious skepticism. She zoomed in on the details, checked the confirmation number, then looked back at Naomi with undisguised suspicion. "Where did you get this ticket?" Amanda asked, her question carrying an accusation. "I'm sorry," Naomi repeated, her patience beginning to thin. "I mean, how did you obtain this business class ticket? Did you purchase it yourself? Or was it gifted? Or—" Amanda trailed off meaningfully. "I obtained it through my employer," Naomi replied, her voice remaining level despite the anger building beneath. "It's a corporate ticket." "Corporate," Amanda repeated, as if the word itself was suspicious when applied to the woman standing before her. "May I see your credit card that matches this purchase?" "The ticket was purchased through my company's travel system," Naomi explained, aware that several passengers behind her were listening, some with sympathetic expressions, others clearly annoyed by the delay. "I don't have a credit card associated with this specific purchase." Amanda's expression hardened. "Ma'am, we've been having issues with fraudulent upgrades and scam business class tickets. People buy economy tickets and then use various schemes to print fake business class boarding passes. Without proof of legitimate purchase, I can't allow you to board in this class." The accusation hung in the air like a slap. Naomi felt the familiar heat rising to her face. Humiliation, anger, and the exhausting recognition that she was being profiled, questioned, and doubted in a way the white passengers moving past her were not. "I assure you, my ticket is legitimate," Naomi said, her attorney's training helping her maintain composure even as her dignity was being publicly shredded. "You can verify it in your system. My name is Naomi Pierce, confirmation number." "I understand you believe your ticket is legitimate," Amanda interrupted, her tone suggesting she thought no such thing. "But I need additional verification. Do you have your driver's license and a credit card that matches the name on the ticket?" "Of course," Naomi said, pulling out her wallet and handing over her Illinois driver's license. "But I've already explained that the ticket was purchased through my employer's corporate travel system, not with a personal credit card." Amanda examined the license, then looked back at Naomi, then at the boarding pass again. "And who is your employer?" The question should have been routine, but the way Amanda asked it, with skepticism and doubt, made it feel like an interrogation. "United Airlines," Naomi said quietly. Amanda's eyebrows rose. "You work for United Airlines?" "Yes." "In what capacity?" Naomi hesitated, not wanting to use her position as a shield, but also recognizing that Amanda's aggressive questioning had crossed into territory that required some response. "I'm an attorney in the corporate legal department." "An attorney," Amanda repeated, and something in her tone suggested disbelief. She looked at Naomi's casual clothing, her backpack, her lack of obvious corporate trappings. "Do you have proof of employment?" The question was so absurd, so far beyond reasonable verification procedures, that Naomi simply stared for a moment. "You're asking me to prove I work for United Airlines in order to board a United Airlines flight." "I'm following security protocols," Amanda said defensively, though several passengers behind Naomi were now murmuring in discomfort at the obvious targeting. "With all the scams and fraud, we have to be careful. I'm sure you understand." "What I understand," Naomi said, her voice still controlled but carrying steel now, "is that you've questioned my ticket, my identity, my employment, and my right to board in business class based on no evidence of fraud whatsoever. I understand that you've subjected me to scrutiny you haven't applied to any other passenger in this line. And I understand exactly why." Amanda's face flushed. "Ma'am, I don't appreciate your tone. If you continue to be difficult, I'll have to call security." "I haven't been difficult," Naomi replied. "I've answered every question you've asked, provided every document you've requested, and maintain professionalism throughout an encounter that has been anything but professional on your part. A man in a business suit behind Naomi spoke up. "Excuse me, but I've been standing here watching this entire interaction. This lady has shown you a valid boarding pass and identification. I don't understand why you're continuing to delay her boarding." Amanda whirled on him. "Sir, I appreciate your concern, but this doesn't involve you. Please wait your turn. It involves all of us who are waiting while you profile a passenger," the man said firmly. "I'm a lawyer, and what I'm witnessing looks like discrimination. I am not discriminating." Amanda's voice rose, defensive anger replacing her earlier false sweetness. "I'm following security protocols that apply to everyone." "Then why haven't you asked me for additional verification?" the man challenged. "I handed you my boarding pass, and you waved me through without question. Same with every other passenger in this line. Only her." The observation landed with uncomfortable truth. Other passengers shifted, some pulling out phones to record, others avoiding eye contact, unwilling to get involved, but clearly uncomfortable with what they were witnessing. "Ma'am," Amanda said, turning back to Naomi and speaking with forced calm, "I'm going to need to speak with a supervisor before I can clear you for business class boarding. Please step aside and wait here." It was the final straw. Naomi was being removed from the boarding process entirely, publicly marked as problematic, forced to wait for additional verification that no other passenger required. "No," Naomi said quietly. Amanda blinked. "Excuse me. No, I will not step aside. I have provided everything you've requested. I have a valid ticket, valid identification, and a legitimate right to board this aircraft. I will wait here while you call your supervisor, but I will not be moved aside as if I'm some sort of security threat. Ma'am, if you don't comply with crew instructions, I will call security to remove you from the gate area entirely." "Then call them," Naomi said, her voice steady despite the churning emotion beneath. "And explain to them why you've singled out a black passenger for additional screening based on no evidence whatsoever except your own bias." The word bias seemed to electrify Amanda. "How dare you? I am not biased. I treat everyone equally. You're the one making this about race when it's about security." "Is it?" Naomi asked. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you saw a black woman in line for business class and immediately assumed she didn't belong. You questioned my ticket, my identity, my employment, and my right to be here. You demanded verification you don't require from white passengers. And now you're threatening to have me removed because I won't accept discriminatory treatment quietly." The gate area had gone silent, dozens of passengers watching the confrontation unfold. Phones were up, recording. The moment was being captured, documented, about to become permanent. Amanda grabbed her radio. "Security to gate C14. Disruptive passenger refusing to comply with boarding procedures." Before security could respond, a man in a pilot's uniform emerged from the jet bridge, Captain Robert Chen, preparing for his final walkthrough before closing the cabin door. He'd heard the commotion and come to investigate. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice carrying command authority. Amanda turned to him with obvious relief. "Captain Chen, this passenger is refusing to follow boarding procedures. She claims to have a business class ticket, but it appears fraudulent, and she's being verbally aggressive toward crew members." Captain Chen looked at Naomi, really looked at her, and his expression shifted immediately from irritation to shock to recognition. "Dr. Pierce," he said, his voice carrying disbelief. "Dr. Naomi Pierce?" Naomi looked at the captain, recognizing him from the last executive meeting where senior management had met with flight operations leadership. "Hello, Captain Chen. You were waiting in line? Someone questioned you." He turned to Amanda, his face showing dawning horror. "Do you know who you're talking to?" Amanda looked between them, confusion and growing dread evident. "She said she's an attorney with United, but—" "She's not an attorney with United," Captain Chen interrupted, his voice tight, with barely controlled fury. "She's the attorney with United. Dr. Naomi Pierce is our chief legal counsel. She's the head of the entire legal department. She reports directly to the CEO. She's senior executive leadership. The blood drained from Amanda's face completely. I didn't, she didn't. Didn't what? Captain Chen's voice was sharp now. Didn't look like an executive to you? Didn't dress the way you think executives should dress? What exactly made you decide to subject one of our senior vice presidents to interrogation and threats of removal? Other gate agents had gathered now, drawn by the commotion. Several passengers were openly filming. The situation had escalated from a boarding dispute to a corporate crisis, all captured on multiple devices. Captain Chen, Naomi said quietly, her attorney's instinct taking over despite her personal hurt. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. There are passengers waiting to board. With respect, Dr. Pierce, I think this needs to be addressed right here, right now, in front of everyone who witnessed your treatment, Captain Chen replied. He looked at the passengers in line. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this delay. You've just witnessed something that should never happen on any United Airlines flight or at any gate. One of our most senior executives was profiled, questioned, and threatened with removal based solely on her appearance. He turned back to Amanda. You're suspended immediately. Collect your belongings and report to the duty manager's office. Your actions today are being reported to corporate HR and legal for full investigation. Captain, please, I was just trying to follow security protocols, Amanda began. You followed your biases, Captain Chen cut her off. And you did it publicly, on camera, to one of the people responsible for ensuring this company maintains legal and ethical standards. The irony would be laughable if it weren't so disgraceful. As Amanda was escorted away by a supervisor, Captain Chen turned to Naomi with genuine remorse. Dr. Pierce, I cannot apologize adequately for what you just experienced. This is unacceptable, and it will be addressed at the highest levels. Naomi nodded, exhaustion suddenly overwhelming her. Thank you, Captain. Right now, I'd just like to board the aircraft and get home. Of course. Please allow me. He personally scanned her boarding pass and walked her onto the aircraft, ensuring she was settled in seat 1A before returning to the cockpit. As the plane pushed back from the gate, Naomi sat in her business class seat, the seat she'd been entitled to all along, the seat she'd been questioned about, doubted over, nearly denied, and let the tears she'd been holding back finally fall. Because this wasn't just about one gate agent or one incident. It was about every time her presence in professional spaces had been questioned, every time she'd been assumed to be support staff rather than leadership, every time her credentials had been doubted because her face didn't match the expected image of power. The videos from passengers went viral within hours. #UnitedGate trended nationally. Amanda Harris was terminated within 48 hours. United Airlines issued a formal apology and announced comprehensive reviews of all gate agent training, with specific focus on unconscious bias and discriminatory screening practices. 3 weeks later, Naomi presented the revised anti-discrimination policies to the board of directors, policies she drafted herself, informed by her own experience, designed to ensure no other passenger would face what she'd faced. Amanda's firing became a case study in how bias destroys careers. Naomi's dignity became a blueprint for demanding systematic change. And one boarding dispute at O'Hare became the catalyst that forced an entire airline to confront how it treated passengers who didn't fit narrow stereotypes of who belonged in premium cabins. Sometimes justice requires more than apologies. Sometimes it requires using the power you've earned to ensure the system that failed you doesn't fail others. And sometimes the lawyer arguing for change is the same person who was told she didn't belong in the room or the airplane seat she'd rightfully earned.